Junior is the people's judge. He's fair.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
And I apologize for the issue that happened.
He's honest.
He said, she said, she
It
said,
is
he
a
said.
he said, she said situation.
Let's stop right there.
He's also a no-nonsense judge.
I want facts.
All rise.
It's now time to enter the courtroom of Judge Junior, the people's judge. The plaintiff, Corey Hughes, is suing the defendant, Julian Helton, in the amount of $2,275 because he claims the defendant damaged his drone by shooting it down with a water hose. The defendant claims the plaintiff's drone was flying over his yard, which was an invasion of his privacy, and it deserved to be shot down. It's time for the hot seat.
I'm here today because my neighbor thinks he can get away with anything. I'm not going to be bullied. He's going to pay for my drone.
You don't bother me, I don't bother you. This kid bothered me, and he got what he deserved. I'm not responsible for destroying his little toy.
All rise. Please remain standing and come to order. This court is now in session with the Honorable Judge Stephen Monero, Jr. presiding.
All right, attack of the drones. Deputy Brown, so we have today. Mr. Hughes, you are suing the defendant, Mr. Helton, for allegedly shooting down your drone. Tell me about this.
Well, sir, I'm a photographer, videographer for a living. I recently purchased a new piece of equipment, a drone with a camera attachment. While I was testing it, I had a verbal conflict with my neighbor.
You had a verbal conflict by testing it.
Yes, sir. He felt that the drone invaded his personal space. I informed him first that in this initial instance, I was not using the camera yet, and that under FAA regulations, I am permitted to use the drone if I'm outside of 25 feet of any people or buildings.
Yeah, did it invade his personal space?
No, sir. I was well within my rights, out 25 feet distance.
You may have been within the FAA, but I'm just curious, did you invade his personal space?
Your Honor, I asked him.
Mr. Helton, we'll get there.
No, sir. I believe that he is a bit paranoid. I was surveying the neighborhood as a whole.
You believe he's paranoid? Why do you have that belief?
Well, sir, he has a short temper, and he seems to be overly obsessed with what I'm doing with my drone, which frankly has very little to do with him.
So short-temperedness equals paranoia?
Well, sir, I think that there's more to it than that. But you see, he has a short temper, and he's. Well, I wasn't doing anything illegal.
Are you okay, Mr. Hughes? Do you need to take a deep breath for a second?
I'm all right. I'm just very frustrated with, you see, my property was destroyed.
Ah.
I feel that the defendant has had a number of instances over my time living as his neighbor where he has overreacted, and he has been overly protective of his space, even though I have done nothing to invade it.
Let's stop right there, Mr. Hughes. Mr. Helton, are you overreactive?
Your Honor, first of all, I'm sorry that you even have to hear this case because it's just stupid that
Well,
it came
don't be
to this.
sorry, and I'll be the judge of whether it's stupid or not.
Okay.
But go ahead and look at me.
I asked the defendant, the plaintiff here, I asked him, please, do not fly these drones over my yard. That's all I
How'd you know
asked.
we had a drone?
Oh, he showed them to me. We're neighbors. We're not friends. We're neighbors. I'm into electronics like every other guy is for the most part. I saw he had something. He had what he called a drone pack. So I would imagine he had more than one. So when I saw them, I went, wow, good for you. Enjoy it. Please, you know me. I'm a private person. Keep it away from my property. That's all I ask. Keep it away from my property.
1 second, Mr. Helton. Mr. Hughes, did you have this conversation with the defendant where he told you to keep it away from his property?
Yes, sir.
But you intended to not follow through with that?
Well, I informed him, as I've said, that I was well within my legal right. And again, I was not focused on his property in particular, but rather the neighborhood as a whole. I was trying to take video for realtors to show a sense of community, perhaps boost the resale value of my home, his home, everyone else in the neighborhood.
So, Mr. Hughes, when he told you that he was still going to fly over your property, what happened next?
I shot the drone out of the sky with a water hose, a power washer.
So you shot the drone down?
Your Honor, I'm a bodyguard. I assess threats. I felt that that was a threat to myself, to my family, to my neighborhood.
But you weren't on duty at the time.
Your Honor, I assess threats.
So you're a bodyguard even off the clock?
That's what I do.
That sounds more like a vigilante, sir.
No, Your Honor, I can
There was
only
no
say-
body to guard, there was just a drone in the air.
I felt there was a threat to my house, to my family, to my space, to my neighborhood. I don't know what.
Why a threat, Mr. Helton? Was there like pistol BB guns on this camera drone? I don't understand.
You'd never know this day and age. You don't know what is being used on the internet. You don't know what is being.
So you were concerned about the camera operating
on the drone, yes.
Flying
Bad
through
enough
your
he had the drone the first day, but when he got the camera the second day and then flew it again over my property, it's like that's as if putting it in your face saying, not only am I going to fly it, but I'm going to take pictures of your property too, and that's what I felt like.
Now, FAA regulation does say within 25 feet he does have the right to do this, but I will ask you, Mr. Hughes, when your neighbor, the defendant, told you that he did not want it flying over his property, why didn't you go to a local park? You know, some other area space where you maybe would not be potentially harassing your neighbor.
I didn't feel that I would be getting as useful material in a public place or a park. Like I said, I'm in contact with a number of realtors in the area who would like to commission me to take shots of residential neighborhoods specifically.
So they'd like to commission you, but they haven't commissioned you yet.
Well, no, sir. I'd need to submit a sample before they would be willing to sign a contract or anything like that.
Well, let me ask you this. You live in an area where I'm sure there's other neighborhoods, other houses, other real estate.
Sure.
So why not go to a place where someone already has asked you not to shoot around their area?
Well, it wasn't just the defendant's house that I was shooting. I was shooting the neighborhood as a whole. And if I may, I think that the threat that he is referring to is actually more specific to him and the plants that he has growing in his backyard.
What plants? Hydrangeas?
No, sir, they're a certain leafy plant. I don't claim to be a herbologist. I think he's growing marijuana.
Ah. Mr. Helton, are you growing marijuana in your backyard?
Once again, Your Honor, all I do is assess threats.
So are you, in this assessment, does that equal growing marijuana?
I grow plants in my backyard. I grow all sorts of different herbs in my backyard.
Do you grow marijuana?
I assess threats.
Okay, so do you grow marijuana in your backyard?
Your Honor, yes, okay, yes, I have a legal medical document that allows me to grow up to 12 plants.
And that's fine, you're not on trial for growing marijuana or not.
So yes, I grow marijuana. I have my 12 plants in my backyard.
So if it's legal and you have your script, as they say, what's the harm in the plaintiff showing through video that this is illegal activity going on in your house?
It's not even just that. It's the matter of the fact that after I asked him not to invade my privacy, he invaded my privacy. That's it. That's what this whole thing is about. He invaded my privacy. After I asked him nicely not to, as if to shove it in my face. So I shot the drone down with water. I didn't realize that it was going to come to this. This is too much already.
Mr. Helton, has he invaded your privacy before?
No.
No.
Nope.
This is the first time.
This is the first time.
So maybe what he says about the short temper and the fuse just has
Does it look like I have a short temper to you?
It looks like you do have a short temper to me, yes. Mr. Hughes, do you have any evidence?
Yes, sir. There are 2 receipts for the drone and the camera attachment. I have multiple copies of these receipts as I intend to include them in my tax returns. Once again, this is necessary equipment for my career.
Now, necessary for your career again. No one's commissioned you to do anything yet, so you're getting a little overzealous potentially by saying it's necessary for your career.
Well, sir, I feel the need to pursue any opportunities that may arise, and as this one becomes
Well, any opportunity may arise.
Well, sure, but I can't just sit around without any equipment. How am I supposed to
Well,
produce
no one's
videos?
asking you to sit around without any equipment. But what if they needed a helicopter shot from a real helicopter? You're going to just get a helicopter in case that situation arises?
Well, I don't really have the means to acquire a helicopter. I'm pursuing the opportunities that are available to me.
You're pursuing opportunities that may become available to you.
Well, yes, but they'll only become available if I do, in fact, pursue them.
Understood. Again, I want to make it clear. This is your neighbor. We sadly don't have a very specific law for a good neighbor policy, but a good neighbor policy would be if a neighbor asks you not to fly your camera drone over his property, not to invade his property, that you would decide not to do that and keep an amicable situation going with your neighbor. Why is that such an issue?
Well, sir, I only mean to take...
I'm not sure what you mean to do. Let's stop right there. Mr. Helton, I want to make something clear to you.
Yes, sir.
While you're at work, being a bodyguard as you are, you know, your job is to assess threats.
Yes.
Your job is to make sure the situation is safe, make sure no harm has come to whoever you were bodyguarding at the time. And I understand how that can carry over in your personal life. But the matter of fact is, you're not a bodyguard when you're off the clock. You're just Mr. Helton, and that's fine. But you can't take the same actions or course of actions that you would maybe if you were being hired to protect somebody or something. As you claimed, you're not doing anything illegal. You have a script for the marijuana, so there really is no issue there. And we can't have you going around like Charles Bronson shooting everything out of the sky that you decide is invading your privacy, because by FAA law, he was not invading your privacy, and that's just a matter of fact. So my judgment is for the plaintiff, and this case is closed.
Judge Junior has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is ordered to pay $2,275.
I may have lost the case, but it's all good, because you know what? I poked that peeping Tom's eye out.
I'm really excited that the judge saw it my way. You know, it helps to know the law. I knew I was well within my rights. He saw it the same way, and now I can't wait to get back to flying my drone.
The plaintiff, Monica Salvo, is suing the defendant, Ken Parnell, in the amount of $7,500 for emotional stress because the defendant thought her son was his grandson when he picked the boy up from school. The defendant says it's an honest mistake. He simply grabbed the wrong kid. It's time for the hot seat.
I don't care how old he is, how blind he is, he took my son, and he needs to compensate us.
Yeah, I made a simple mistake. Yeah, maybe it was a senior mistake, but I didn't hurt anyone. I took the wrong kid to get some candy. It's probably a good lesson for the whole family.
All right, Miss Salvo, you're suing Mr. Parnell for $7,500 because he picked up the wrong Jaden from school. Tell me about it.
Well, I got a phone call from the daycare saying that my son did not arrive and that they were concerned he was missing. So I drove over to the school and I found out he was not there.
What time does daycare begin?
At 3 p.m.
What time did you get the call?
I got the call at 3:05. And so at that point, I knew there was a problem because he wasn't at the school, and so I drove immediately over there.
Where were you?
I was doing my part-time job.
So you left your job to go?
I left my job that's why we do the daycare, the after-school program, because I don't get out in time to go ahead and get him. So we do the after-school program. But in any case, what wound up happening is that this man, Mr. Parnell, took my child. And he says it was an accident, but when you do those things, it's extremely scary and traumatic for a child that's 6 years old. And so what had happened is he got out of school, and then he came up to him, he grabbed his hand and said, "Jaden, your mom wanted me to pick you up." And so my son was confused but thought, okay, he knows my name. He said, "My mom wanted me to pick him up. I thought I was going to after school, but I guess I should follow him." And so he went and did that, and he took him to what I found out later was a candy store.
So Mr. Parnell, you were saying, intentionally took your child?
Well, he went up to my child and said, "Jaden, my mother told me to pick you up today."
My
grabbed
mother?
his hand. I'm sorry?
His mother told him?
That's what he told my son. He said, "Your mother told me to pick you up, and so I'm taking you." And so he thought, okay, that's strange. She didn't tell me about this, but okay, he knows my name. And he grabbed my hand and took her into the car. And so he went along, and then he took him to a candy store. And that's when Jaden said, "Wait a second." He's like, "I'm not allowed to eat candy. It's not good for my body."
Did he tell this to Mr. Parnell?
Yes, he did. He said, "I'm not allowed to eat candy. My mom says I can't have it because he has an allergic reaction." And so it was at that point that I think Mr. Parnell realized, wait a second, this is not the right trial.
So what exactly happened? Did he take him away far off after that?
So he took however long it took. I don't know where this candy store was, but then he showed up at the school and the daycare center at 3:30. He didn't talk to anyone. My kid, because I was standing there, I had called the police at that point, and my kid
So
came
bottom line is
running
at
up to me.
3:30, your kid comes running up to you. You didn't see Mr. Parnell.
He just turned and walked. He basically drove up. My kid ran out, and then he drove off. And I'm like, what just happened?
Okay, let's
here?
stop right there. So, Mr. Parnell, you dropped the mistaken Jaden off, and you just drove off. You didn't pick up the real Jaden?
No, of course I did.
So tell me what happened.
Well, I'm reconciling with my family. I've lived out of the country for about 30 years, and I'm trying to get to know them better. And
Mr. Parnell, why were you away from your family for 30 years?
I was in Spain following my dream. I was a pebble artist, sir.
Pebble artist, what is that?
Well, it's an art form that's kind of rare where you use pebbles to make statues and pictures. That was my dream, and I followed my dream.
You followed your dream,
That's right.
but you couldn't follow the right Jaden home.
Well, Jaden, actually, I thought it was a type of stone I used to use. I don't know.
But it's not a stone, it's your grandchild.
I know. But
And it was the wrong child.
since both of my relatives work, my son and his wife both work, they asked me, would I, in an emergency situation, go get Jaden at school? I get to the school, I see a bunch of kids playing, I yell the name Jaden out. Now, how many Jadens there are, I don't know. But
Don't you know about your Jaden and how he looks?
well, I know him, but he's a 6-year-old, and I have only met him once or twice, and a lot of the children look the same. And
How hard is it to distinguish your child from another child?
well, I agree with that, and I wasn't wearing my glasses. I did make a mistake, but I yelled out Jaden, and this boy came running out of he had a hat on. He came running up to me.
Mr. Parnell, are you nearsighted or farsighted?
Well, I used my glasses for driving.
So you can't see far away.
Right.
So when the wrong Jaden came up close to you, you didn't notice it wasn't your Jaden?
Well, he was wearing a hat, and to be honest with you, I don't know my grandson that well, and he came with me. I did make a mistake, and he got in the car, and he wouldn't talk to me.
When you got in the car, did you put your glasses on to drive?
I did.
Okay, and when did you speak to this other Jaden?
I tried to.
You tried to, what happened to your throat?
I spoke, the child did not answer, sir. I think he was a mute.
Okay, what did you ask him? Because he's not a mute.
Ask him how it went at school today, or what's going on, what are you studying, what are you doing, basic questions you'd ask the child. And we went just a few blocks to a candy store, and I let him buy a bag of candy. He filled it up.
This whole time you're not recognizing this is not your grandchild.
Right, but
Have you
once-
ever seen your grandchild before this date and time?
I have seen him, yes.
Just from the backside, I guess?
No, I've seen him quickly from the front.
Quickly,
introduced
does he
himself.
run by you and say, hi, Grandpa, and just keep
Well,
going like that?
He's not a good, very fast runner, I guess.
Well, I'm just worried about your eyesight and the fact that you can't recognize your grandson from another child. This is very disturbing.
I agree it was a mistake. I've agreed all along it was an innocent mistake. But he wouldn't speak to me until the candy issue came up, and he was worried about eating the candy, and I finally figured out I had the wrong Jaden.
Okay, I'm worried about a few things. Let's stop right there.
All right.
So tell me about this trauma that you're saying was experienced by your son from getting some candy.
So my son went through this. So first of all, he doesn't eat candy. He has an allergic reaction. So I took him to the emergency room, made sure that he wanted to get checked out.
The emergency room?
Yes.
What was wrong with him?
Well, he had an allergic reaction to candy.
Which
he doesn't
is?
eat candy. So he gets hives.
So he got hives.
Yeah, and so the thing is, I have the medical bill from the urgent care.
Has he gotten hives before from candy?
Yeah, that's why he doesn't eat it.
Now, the other times he got hives, did you rush him to the emergency room?
Well, initially, yes, and then once we found out what was going on, but I didn't know what was clearly going on because he wasn't speaking. He was so scared. And so I thought, okay, did something else happen that I don't know about?
Do you have any evidence for the court today?
I do. I have the emergency room visit.
Okay, emergency room fees, immunization and vaccination, and pharmacy. $2,500 for hives, which again has happened before, and you knew this happened before. So you didn't really go for the hives. You said you went because you thought something else might be the matter.
I didn't know, and I care about my child. I didn't want to have anything else. I didn't know what had happened because he only told me he made me. I had to eat the candy. I had to
Go
follow
ahead
him,
and
and
take
so
a
I was
deep breath.
worried.
This is okay. He's
Yeah.
fine now. You're also asking for $5,000 for this trauma. In my mind, eating candy isn't very traumatic, but we'll stop right there. Mr. Parnell, so
Yes, Your Honor.
tell me something. When you have your actual grandson, how did you get him from the school? You came back, you realized you had the wrong Jaden, and now you pick up the correct Jaden. The plaintiff says you just dropped off her son and went out like a bat out of hell. Is that what happened?
No.
You did pick up the correct grandson.
Yes. What was
Okay.
the question again?
When you realized you had the wrong Jaden, and you went back and dropped off the wrong Jaden, you did pick up the right Jaden.
Yes,
I mean,
I
and how could you tell it was him?
Yes,
so
Your
many Jadens around, all looking the same.
Well, that's true, but I called out his name, Jaden, which is an unusual name to begin with. He came to the car, and I asked him what his parents' names were.
So this time you asked him what his parents' names
That's
were.
correct, I did. I had made a mistake before. There's no doubt about that. But it isn't worth any money. It was a simple error. No harm came to them. In fact, they may have benefited from learning a lesson.
Miss Salvo, I have a feeling that, and this could be just my interpretation, but it seems like you are a very caring parent, maybe an over-anxiously caring parent.
I was really worried.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the trauma that was received from the child may have come from you, from this overbearingness, from this concern, from this over-concern. All that really happened was for about 20 minutes, he went in with a very kind young gentleman and got some candy.
I understand that. As a result, my son, he's very scared to even leave the house. He's scared of
You
strangers.
probably
He's
have
scared
told
of
him it's not
everything.
safe to leave the house.
No, that is not true. And so that's why, you know, when he was so traumatized by this older gentleman, that's why I took him to the emergency
Here's
room.
what is true,
and I
Miss
said,
Salvo.
what can I do
Here's what is
so
true,
he
Miss
can feel
Salvo.
safe?
You seem traumatized by this event. So I'm sure that's why the child is also traumatized. Mr. Parnell,
Yes, sir.
keep
Yes,
your
sir.
glasses on at all times from now on, and make sure you get the right grandchild. This
Yes, Your
case is dismissed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge Junior has ruled in favor of the defendant. The plaintiff's claim is denied.
Clearly, Mr. Parnell doesn't care about children and doesn't care if he picks up a child that's not his. And he obviously doesn't care about the emotional distress that he's given my son either.
Well, obviously, I'm very happy about the decision. The judge is very wise and made a proper decision. I would never hurt a child.
Jet does not miss. Let's watch him struggle. Cutting their vision. Still in sight. Spike planted. Cállate.
Enemy spotted B. Down. Multiple enemies A. They're right here.
One enemy remaining.
Gun here.
We cannot let them unweave our world.
I expected better of them.
Dream big, make it happen. Enemy B. Removed.
Last player
I
standing.
know exactly where you are.
Gone. Neutralized.
One enemy remaining.
Revealing area. Do not hunt the hunter. My ult is ready.
We do what we do. Get back to chilling.
Here.
Cutting their vision.